Hi everyone. I hope you're doing well, and this conversation is a really important one to have with your loved ones. So, excuse me for the ugly background, but I am in the exact phase of my life for this topic, and so I felt really compelled to share this information if it's going to help with anyone else and their relationship with their loved one and the end of life decisions that everyone has to make at some point. So, the topic is about how to have conversations about end of life medical decisions. So, it's very much how to have it or what goes on. And my own background is that I am a nurse and I have worked in skilled nursing facilities where we work with mostly the elderly, and we have always had to have the paperwork about advanced care directives. And on the other side, I've also been a family member. I am a family member right now where we have these conversations about end of life decisions for our loved ones. So typically, it should always be stored in your hospital record, and it's a standardized form, just so you know. An advanced care directive can include things like artificial nutrition, intubation, CPR, decision makers. This is a big one for making decisions for you when you or your loved one are not capable of making it yourself. And then you usually have to have it notarized or have an unrelated party, third party witness and sign it with you. And then it lives in your chart. And the only time people will ever really make you sign it is if you are about to undergo a surgery where you're going to really have a high risk procedure, and they really want to make sure that in case anything happens in that procedure that someone can help make decisions for you, or they would know what you would want to do. The other opportunities are as you get sicker with any illness, then it will be encouraged. So if you have cancer and you have to go through chemo, or you're just getting more ill and you're ending up in the hospital more, or if you are starting to have an altered mental status, then they're going to ask you to do these forms, because you have to do them in a state when you are alert and oriented, and basically with full mental capacity to make these decisions for yourself. So that's what the Advanced Care Directive is. And the reason why it is so important to have it and be proactive about it is because, honestly, we live in a society where a lot of people are really averse to talking about death, and illness is very uncomfortable. And if we don't talk about it, it is truly a disservice to our loved ones. They end up not knowing what we would have wanted. They end up in their own state of fear, worry, anxiety, pressure about making the right decision, even though they themselves are like grieving for you if you truly are incapable of making decisions for yourself. So, and then family members can really be at odds with each other, and they end up disagreeing about what needs to be done. So if you can do this paperwork if you can bring it up to a loved one, you're doing a huge service for them. And it would look something like this. You could bring the papers home and you could say, hey, I really love you. We all love you. And we know that this is an uncomfortable conversation to have. But we want to make sure we respect your choices if there's ever a time that you cannot answer for yourself. We want to make sure you're comfortable and that we're not forcing you to do something you wouldn't have wanted done. For me, honestly, I have to bring up this topic a number of times in order for people to accept it. I even will do it comically because it's morbid and uncomfortable for people to think of their own dying. But then if I set up each scenario, right? And I say, okay, well, let's break this down. If you were suddenly going to be a vegetable and you couldn't speak and you were in a coma and they didn't have any prognosis for you being able to wake up, would you want to be kept on life support? Do you want to have artificial nutrition? Do you want to be withering away in bed, totally gone and absent from life? What about CPR? They might break your rib cages, to be honest. So they're going to be doing compressions on your chest. And it can leave bruises. It can break bones. And hey, if you have a reason to live, let's make sure you are very clear on that because it can be very uncomfortable to recover from CPR. Okay, intubation. Do you want the breathing assistance? If something really happened, would you want a tube crammed down your throat? Because it's actually very inflexible. It's an inflexible tube. And so basically, after having that tube crammed down your throat to help you breathe, for a while after that, when you do live, if you do live, your voice will be quite hoarse and you will not have as strong of a cough. So then you might be struggling to have productive coughs and your voice will be hoarse and it will be very dry and it'll be quite a bit of time until you recover from that. So those are kind of like the different scenarios that could happen. And you could even have a doctor have this conversation with your family member. But again, no one will replace the primary decision maker that you or your loved one designate. And if you do not designate anybody, and if you do not do these forms, then anytime an emergency situation happens to you, by default, they will do all of this. But the big difference that I really want to highlight here is that coming from healthcare providers and those who have seen the elderly pass away and those who have worked in the ICU, we have all seen how sad it can be to kind of artificially prolong life and really to leave people alive but uncomfortable and weak and compromised anyways from what they have gone through with their illness alone, and then from the emergency interventions of saving their life, not really guaranteeing that they're going to have a quality of life. So there has definitely been a place for all of these emergency interventions where someone's quality of life has totally improved and they have had a second chance at life. But that is not always the case for people who are going through something more chronic and the prognosis, like I said, may not be as bright. So again, if you want to have that conversation, sit down and just let them know how much you love them and how much you would love to respect their decisions. And really be honest with each other that if this stuff doesn't happen, family members are going to be put in a position to make decisions where they may not agree with each other. And so you really have to pick a person who's going to make decisions for you, who you think knows about your philosophy about life and death, or who knows what kind of quality of life you would want to have if you were to be alive. Personally, for me, we are having some really difficult conversations because even though we did that paperwork, the decisions my family feels have changed at this point. And the reason why it has changed is because circumstances have changed. And the doctors have reminded that when circumstances change, your choices will probably change. And it's really important to update those choices. But again, not everybody will agree, and these decisions are so hard to make. So good on you for looking up information about this to be informed and to prepare yourself. And I hope that you have compassion and forgiveness for everyone, because when these decisions are down to the wire, it serves nobody for there to be hostility or blame or criticism. When there is pain, there is also anger and grief. You know, it's all a part of the mix. It's all a part of all of the emotions we experience when someone we love is dying. So I hope that that helps you have a really, really important conversation, and share with me whatever may have helped you from this video. And I would really appreciate the like and subscribe so that I can continue to support other people, share this valuable message about mental health, uncomfortable conversations, and having lots of self-love and self-compassion.